Open the floor for questions for Coach.
I guess looking back on that South Dakota performance, you talked about on the radio a little bit, but just from an atmosphere standpoint, where does that rank in your career?
It's ranks up there for games I've coached in as far as noise and enthusiasm and passion. And, it actually reminded me a little bit. You remember the old Gallagher Iba Arena before they put the addition on, where that ceiling felt it was like right here. And, that's what it felt like. And I know that was a huge factor. I know I talked about this after the game the other day, but that was a huge factor in us coming back and getting that win was the crowd. They just willed us to keep going. And I thought our pace was unbelievable, and we just kept swinging, and that's the thing I'm most proud of our guys. I didn't love the start, obviously. First time playing an opponent of that caliber, and one thing we never did was panic, and we never hung our heads, and we stuck to the game plan. And ultimately, when we started getting deflections, that's when we've been our best, is when we've gotten deflections, and that gets us out on the break, and we've done a good job taking advantage in those situations, but we didn't have enough of those early in the game, and we didn't force any turnovers. And Oklahoma is a really good team, and really good teams hurt you when you don't go out there and execute like you need to in the first part of the game. But we hung with it. I thought we did a good job taking what the defense gave us, and ultimately that led to the 3-point line opening up. And I thought our guys just made good, unselfish plays the entire game. To have 0 turnovers and a half against a really athletic, long SEC team was really impressive by our guys, and I think we only had 2 with about 5 minutes to play, and then had a couple bad ones there down the stretch. But overall, I just thought a really complete game. Still plenty to learn from in that. We had a pretty heated film session, just with some things we missed on the defensive end that we needed to be better at: transition, rebounding, communication, those type of things that led to some breakdowns. And anytime we did have a breakdown, Oklahoma made us pay. We fouled too much in that game. They were in the bonus with 10 minutes left in the first half, and that's what they do. And we're going to face another team in New Mexico on Thursday that does a really good job of getting to the free throw line. So, defending without fouling had been a big strength of ours. I think we were top 5 in the nation going into that game against Oklahoma. And we were a little out of character, I thought, with getting our hands on their bodies, and that's what got them to the line. And again, when you can make free throws, that raises your confidence. I think we're 350th in free throw defense, so teams are converting when we're putting them on the line, and we just can't put ourselves in that situation.
Where are you standing health-wise, both with Oogie and Braden, Leo, are both listed?
Yeah, Oogie is, so Oogie still has not done anything on the court, and that's been by design. That this isn't a setback or anything like that. This is just something that we decided to do with the back, was to shut him completely down for 3 weeks. He's back doing some running right now, but no contact. We'll get into that next week, is when he'll start in the return to play, and that's probably going to take a couple more weeks before he is ready for game-type action. Leo has had a little bit of a setback as well, so we're going to shut him down for the next 1 to 2 weeks. And hopefully he's got some pain going down the right side of his leg, and the smart thing to do is just to to try to get that swelling out of there and get him right. When we get him back on the court, hopefully not have any more setbacks. Braden's been back in practice. Today was a full practice for him. Yesterday, he just did the station work. He did not do anything live, but it was good to have him back as a full participant today.
Price, I know one of the selling points was to be able to showcase his game to more just a spot corner 3-point shooter. Was that performance against Oklahoma kind of indicative of what you saw his game maybe translating into your system?
You know what? I saw when we recruited Price the first time around in high school, I saw a really complete all-around player. And, listen, guys go into their situations and they're put into whatever role it is based on the personnel that the team has. And his role at Iowa was really to shoot the ball and be a spot-up shooter, and he played that role, I thought, very well last year off the bench. And if he would have stayed, I think his game would have progressed into more of what he's doing now, as far as doing some playmaking. And that's what he did in high school and what he did on the AAU circuit. I saw him as a guy you could use as a facilitator of your offense, and a guy that could drive it. He's more athletic than you think, and I think he showcased that the other day on some of those straight line drives to the basket. But Price really is a complete basketball player. 7 assists, 0 turnovers. we've really challenged him to rebound better. That was one area. His rebound percentage was not very good. A year ago, he was under 10%. There's no reason it should be like that for a guy that's 6'7" and has some athleticism to his game. So I was good to see him, go out there and get 5 rebounds as well. But just his overall performance, not only the 28 points, but the 7 rebounds, the 5 assists, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and 0 turnovers. That was a great sign, and I think it's a confidence builder. When you go out there, you can do it, but when you have a game like that, that does wonders for your confidence.
With Leo being shut down, was it depth-wise looks like behind Burke and Rank? Obviously, you got Jared Garcia there.
Yeah, Jared, we went through some of the offense today at the end of practice and put Jared in that spot. Kale obviously is a guy that can handle it, and we played him in some spot minutes there last year. Justin Bolus is a guy that has to be ready. Justin has played very well in practice, and we've got full confidence in him if we need him to go in there and give us some minutes at that 5 spot. And so it's really kind of by committee right now. And like I said, hopefully we'll get Leo back soon and won't have any more setbacks with Oogie once we get him back on the court.
MTE like this, how do you handle the second game in preparation? We don't know your opponent. 24 hours, was that due for the process?
Yeah, right now it's all about New Mexico. That's our sole focus. And we've got guys working behind the scenes right now on whoever our opponent will be. We've got personnel edits for both teams. We've got first look edits, which we would watch when we get back to the hotel. After we figure out who we're going to play, and then have a walkthrough that following morning. But right now our sole focus is on New Mexico.
A brand new team, new coach, almost entirely new roster. How much more difficult does that make scouting them just with all the unknowns about them?
Yeah, we've got 3 full games that we've obviously watched every possession that they've had, and they're playing very similar way than what they did last year at UC San Diego. I know this, they're extremely well coached. They're very disciplined. They do a great job forcing turnovers, and they get in passing lanes. We have to be very safe with the ball. I thought we did a good job of that, obviously, with Oklahoma, and we're going to have to duplicate that in this game on Thursday night. But, they run good actions. They put you in some tough positions with getting the ball shifted side to side 3 or 4 times over the course of the possession. They do actually some similar things that Oklahoma did. So, from a scouting standpoint, we're going to have some of the same concepts. Defensively, we just have to execute them better than what we did on Saturday. But this is a really good basketball team that we're playing on Thursday, and we're gonna have to be on point from the jump.
Porter Moser called you guys an NCAA tournament team after beating Oklahoma. How validating is that, just for early on, that to be the impression of an opposing team that you respect, and how does that resonate for you guys early on?
Yeah, I've got an unbelievable amount of respect for Porter Moser. He's been a Final Four coach. He's everywhere he goes, he builds an unbelievable culture. He's a great builder of programs. But it really doesn't mean anything at this point. We had a great win, and that game will benefit us come March, but we've got a long ways to go before we get there. So, it was really the first major test that we had. Obviously every game is of the utmost importance, but that was, the first opportunity to play against a high major, and we passed it. And, again, it was basically a home court game. And, to go out there and find a way to win it when things weren't going well early is a testament to our guys. It should be a confidence builder for our guys. But, now we got to move on. We showed them a lot of clips where we can grow. We showed them a lot of clips about complacency after big wins. And it's one of the key things in our business is finding a way to put a big emotional win behind you. And you can't listen to the noise. You see all the things that are written about your team and all the things that are out there, social media, which our guys are glued to those stupid phones, and, they see it. And, you just can't get caught up in it. You have to put it behind you, or else you're going to go out there with a lackadaisical effort the next opportunity you get. So, for us, I like the way our guys bounce back in film and went out and prepared, had a pretty mental day yesterday just with the big loads that our guys put on their bodies. And today we got after it a lot more. And I thought our guys were locked in and ready to go. And we'll have another, mental type day tomorrow. We'll come in the morning, we'll watch film, we'll have a walkthrough, we'll get on the bus, we'll get down to Kansas City, and then we'll have an opportunity to go shoot in the arena and flush our guys' legs out, getting ready for the back-to-back on Thursday, Friday.
Speaking about phones, you mentioned last night on the radio that you instituted that no phones at team dinner policy. Did you do that at all at Iowa State? And just I guess, how tough is that to do that in this age where really just like kids are glued to their phones?
Yeah, I don't even remember. Was there cell phones when I was at Iowa State? It seemed like a long time ago. No, listen, it was Luca's idea. Luca just said, "What do you think about this?" And I thought it was great. I thought it was a really good idea when, the guys go in there and you look at all your team meals and nobody's even looking at each other. Everybody's glued to their phone and looking at their social media. So, we implemented this a year ago. Actually, when we went on the foreign trip is when we first did it and, took the guys' phones away, not only the players, but staff. We put our phones away as well. And, at some time you're thinking, all right, what's the score of the Rutgers game right now? And everybody's like, well, we don't have our phones, so we can't check. But yeah, it's been great. It really does force conversation with the guys. I do think it helps with chemistry. And, when Luca came up with that idea, it's been really good for our guys.
This shooting will be better. You're shooting 38.4% from three, 60% from the field. Is this where you expect to be this early in the season, or how would you gauge that?
Yeah, you never know until the lights turn on what your team's going to do. We've been pretty good in practice as far as converting. And, the thing that I've really liked is we've played unselfish, simple basketball. And that's one thing we've really stressed to this team. And, you can't play in a crowd. This team, if you try to go in and play in small spaces, they're going to take the ball from you. So, we have to make simple plays and, make the kick, and when it's there, and trust your teammate's going to make the next right play. And, and this is, those percentages with one game where we couldn't throw the thing in the ocean with Maryland Eastern Shore. So, our guys have done a good job, I think, of playing simple basketball, and we've done a nice job converting. And we found the hot hand when those guys got it going the other day, and it was Connor in the BYU game. We did a good job finding the guys that were hitting the shots. We've run actions for those guys. I thought our screening was tremendous in that game the other day against Oklahoma, and that really freed up our guys. So, if we continue to play with that way, not that the ball's always going to go in the way that it has, but if you keep making the right play, and I thought we grew. I said this, so, it's no secret. We were not good offensively. Our thrust, our pace, our purpose was terrible against Maryland Eastern Shore. And to our guys' credit, we got in the film room and they carried that over to the practice court the next 2 days. So our preparation going into that Oklahoma game from an offensive standpoint was exactly where it needed to be. And, we're going to have to continue to have great days of prep if we want to continue on with this trend.
Getting deflections. How do you or Nate instill that mentality on defense of just constant activity that you've had these first few
Yeah, I
games?
mean, you always talk a lot about contesting shots, but we talk about contesting every pass. And, we're pretty good at it sometimes. And we do have some length out there. We're not the most athletic team, but at times we've got a team out there that's got a lot of length. So, for us, that's the way, to make up for some of that lack of athleticism is to use your hands and to get deflections. And, we show at halftime, how many deflections we have, what our DER is, our offensive rebound, what the opponent's offensive rebound percentage is. And, Oklahoma had a very high offensive rebound percentage in the first half, and we did a much better job in the second of going in and hitting and making first contact and deflecting passes. They had a couple wide open plays to the basket that we deflected and took away an easy layup or a dunk. So just overall, I thought our defensive intensity was much better. We just have to come out of the gate with that same type of purpose on the defensive end because, again, once they get to the free throw line, they have a couple uncontested shots. It's a lot easier to make baskets. As a guy that made a few shots in his career, if you make a couple early, it just makes it that much easier as the game goes on.
How big is it to essentially get almost a full week of rest after you had to stick with rank and Price for pretty much that entire second half?
Yeah, it's we're gonna have to. I talked to Rink about this. We're gonna have to give him some vet days. And he came in yesterday and he looked like me running around out there. He looked like an 80-year-old man. So but today he was a lot better. And there's going to be some days where we keep him out of live play. We'll get him through the preparation, the stations, the offensive and defensive execution. But when we go up, we're going to have to save his legs, as we go on. And generally, listen, as the season goes on, you shorten things up. It's more mental, but at times you got to put your foot up their ass if they're not performing to the level or if the intensity isn't where it needs to be. But yeah, we'll be smart with Rink all year.
Physical stuff too, but also like the emotional coming off a game like that where it took so much to come back and win that game the way that you did. How have you just balanced the not getting too high, too low emotionally in entering this one.
Yeah, I mean, we've showed him clips. We showed him a Saban clip. We showed him a Chris Beard clip. We showed him a Giannis clip on talking exactly about those things, about, not letting your highs get too high or your lows too lows, or riding the roller coaster of emotions, or, getting complacent, which is human nature in our business when you have a big win like that. And it's more now than ever with social media. These guys, you read one thing about yourself, and all of a sudden, something pops up from you and you and you and, everybody in the room that all of a sudden just pops up on your feed. And then you start, beating your chest a little bit. You just can't get caught up in it. And the same thing if the other way, if things don't go well and, these guys are frauds, those types of things. You just can't get caught up in either of them. That's what creates the roller coaster of emotions. And in today's era, with kids, a lot of times being sensitive, you got to preach to your team. I think this group is as level as any that I've coached. They're enjoyable to be around as anybody that we've been around. So, I don't think it'll be a problem. Now we'll find out on Thursday, but these guys have prepared very well, regardless of what has happened to our team.
What'd you think of the impact BK had?
I thought BK was incredible. He was the one that really got us going and took advantage of the mismatch and sealed his guy. I thought he played off 2 feet and finished as well as he had. You see the pop and explosiveness that he has in his game after a really good summer, and the job that he did in the weight room and what he did with his body. It was good to see him knock down that 3 in the left wing coming out early in that second half. And I thought defensively he has the impact that he always does. But yeah, I thought BK was terrific.
Big night, but just how 67 points over his last 3 games. Just how have you seen, as a culture standpoint, him really buy into your program and standards?
Yeah, I mean, he fits obviously very well with how we want to play. I think he fits very well with Rink, with what he's able to do, with the way he can space the floor, and that's what's going to open up lanes for Price to take the ball to the basket. He's playing with smart players on the perimeter, with Jamarcus, with Sam, with Kale, that do a nice job running in action. Sam called a play after Price hit his first one, just based on where Price was on the floor. That was brilliant, to get him another 3. That's what cut the lead from 10-3 to then 10-6. And then the next one he drives the slot to get the dunk. So, that's the recognition of our guys that they're doing a better job of as we're going along in the season, is when a guy gets it going, find a way to run an action for him on the next possession. So, just guys finding ways. But yeah, Price has been he's been everything that we've hoped that he would be, and probably a little bit more, to be honest with you. So we're just going to keep riding him, and when he gets that thing going, it's fun to see him. He's a really confident player, and that's what I love to see out of him.
You alluded to this earlier, but in watching the film, what do you think changed in the second half? Just how you got after it on the glass and kind of counteracted some of Oklahoma's.
I just think overall activity. Wilson was the biggest thing that we had, and again, I think our crowd had a lot to do with that. And that's something else we talked to our team about. You're not always going to have what seemed to be 30,000 behind us, even though it was only 3,200. Amy, I think, was the crowd. So, for our guys, that's got to be the constant. That's got to be the standard that our guys play with every night. You can't rely on a crowd getting behind you, because, we've only got, 16, I think, more games at PBA, and, the rest are going to be on the road. So, we got to find a way to muster up that energy from the beginning and sustain it for 40 minutes.
Else for Coach?
Thanks.
Thank you.